Our third speaker is Paul Lang. Paul has worked tirelessly towards the renaissance of Buffalo through a variety of preservation projects and initiatives, both professionally and privately. As a licensed architect / project manager for local design firm Carmina Wood Morris, DPC, he has played an integral role in several of the region's most prominent historic projects, including the Bethune Lofts, just down the street from here, the restoration of the Hotel Lafayette, the Remington Rand Lofts, the Tishman Building, and the renovation of Lafayette Presbyterian Church. All New York State Preservation League award winners, and he served as either historic specialist or project manager. Since 2008, he has served on the board of the Central Terminal Restoration Corp. And has been a driving force behind the scenes of many of the organization's accomplishments. Last year, I was lucky enough to have a tour with some students of ours here at the School of Architecture, one of Paul's tours through the building, and his passion for Buffalo and the city's architectural legacy is undeniable. So please welcome Paul Lang.
It's going to be really hard to get through 523,000 square feet and 90 years of history in 6 minutes, so I'm going to try. Essentially, the terminal structure was built as a cathedral to industry when the city was showing a great deal of promise. And the story of the Central Terminal really mirrors that of the city. Essentially, it was built to be able to handle 1 million people a day when the city thought it was going to reach that point, and we never quite obviously reached that potential. So after 50 years of debate between New York Central and the stakeholders or the leadership of the city, the site that the terminal will ultimately be built in was selected. From this point, New York Central essentially won out. This is going really fast. Essentially, by using this site, it would allow them to cut off 3 hours of their trip, which made the railway much more efficient. Speaking of efficiency, the building went up in 24 months. That's counting design and construction time. Essentially, it's a steel substructure wrapped in masonry, which allowed your finishes to fluctuate based off the public spaces or the worker spaces. The main public spaces, probably the areas that any of you have been on tours that we can take you to, were finished in marble and terrazzo. New York Central didn't spend that type of money on their workers. The upper floors are exposed concrete, exposed ceilings. But going back to kind of the story of the building, it really etched itself in kind of the history of Buffalo. It's kind of one of those favorite landmarks because it really represents the city. Everybody has a story. Everybody has some association with the space. Here's an image of a political election presentation from Dewey, and then also the neighborhood. It was a focal point. It was basically a mall before there was really a concept. The neighborhood would come up and shop or eat or the restaurant or even use the restrooms because they were so glorious and fancy. So these are the mix of the stories that you hear, like when we do our tours. Like I said, everybody has some type of an association. Again, since it was designed to be able to handle a city of 1 million people, closest guy was handling 220 trains a day during World War II. Obviously, after the war, rail ridership would decline. So this is probably one of the last photos of actually seeing a mass of people on the concourse during the decline of rail, as offices or New York Central or Penn Railway at the time started to move out. Portions of the building started getting mothballed and decommissioned. So you can see here kind of the temporary partition that went across the concourse when it was serving solely as a rail station. But you can see it's still in good shape. Eventually, the New York Central, or Amtrak, as it was known at the time, would leave the building in 1979, and it would fall into the hands of good ownership. Essentially, they kept the building up, maintained, everything would have worked. All the lights were there, fixtures, etc. And unfortunately, due to some mismanagement, the building fell into foreclosure, was put up for auction. And at that point, in the mid-'80s, when you start seeing the decline of the railway. So a lot of people think that's been abandoned for 50 years. That's where all the destruction happened. Really hasn't. There's a 10-year window from the mid-'80s to the mid-'90s before the non-for-profit was formed that you see all the decay. You see, the 1.5 million or 2 million worth of artifacts and materials that were taken out of the building. And since it was slated for demolition, the city or the municipality really wasn't that concerned about it. Fortunately, somebody made a flippant comment in Common Council and sell the building for $1. So the founding members of the CTRC pooled their resources came up with $1, purchased the building, and the assumption we're going to tax and started the non-for-profit that currently owns and operates the iconic portion of the complex, the tower, the baggage building, and obviously the main concourse that you're seeing a lot of the images of. At the beginning, there was so much debris and garbage in the floor. We had 3 foot of debris that we've had to haul out of the space. And that's just the concourse level here, not counting all the other floors we've been working on. But we really didn't know what the interest was going to be in the spot. And the first day that we opened tours, we had over 1,000 people lined down the driveway waiting to get back in. So after that point, it was kind of emboldened the organization. We continued to clean out more spaces, to be able to open up more spots to try to bring tours in or more events. This is a picture of the trolley lobby that was cleaned out several years ago and has become one of the favorites of the ghost hunters. And we just continue every year. We try to open up another space or some other type of environment that the people haven't seen. And then our focus kind of advanced and took another step forward. We really started focusing on the restoration of some of the artifacts. We managed to find one of the original light sconces in an antique shop in Toronto, purchased it back, and then the local sheet metal union has actually donated all those sconces. They've refabricated them to match the existing, and we're working on a few more actually as we speak. Kind of one of the high points was our volunteer-based projects really kind of reached a max level in kind of 2011 around the National Trust Conference. There's really a goal and kind of projected the project from a local project to kind of a national one. We were kind of, selfishly, I think we were kind of one of the secrets of Buffalo that people weren't familiar with. But we were so popular during the event that we actually had to reopen the building on the Sunday after the conference ended to be able to handle all the interest that we were getting. Coming out of that, we really started focusing on redevelopment efforts. So we've been trying to prime the pump, so to speak, for private investment and development into the project. I'm sure everybody's kind of seen all the press articles and everything that are out there. But in addition to that, we're refocusing on some infrastructure improvements, most notably the electrical project that was just in the news. And we're also working on some plumbing in hopes of being able to enlarge the space in the concourse.